into that or not.
Is it sort of, being someone from Iran and having family there, is it sort of heart-wrenching to watch some of the videos that come out of there with showing the violence, the extreme violence that's happening in the streets of Iran? Is it really hard for you to watch?
Well, yes, it's heart-wrenching, and yes, it's extremely difficult, and it's horrifying. But I want to be careful to say that there's a number of different emotions at play, because it's also inspiring. I mean, it's inspiring more than almost anything I can remember, because you're seeing people who have felt suppressed for a long time, rising up and saying all the right things. I mean, the protesters for democracy haven't been blowing things up and shooting.
They're not demanding anything that shouldn't be already there.
I don't believe they are, and they've been doing it in a relatively peaceful and democratic way. And the fact that the courage they're showing. Yesterday at the rally, I talked about this slogan, this spontaneous slogan that came from the streets when they were being tear gassed, when they were assembling in the streets in the thousands after the Supreme Leader Khamenei had said, "You're not allowed to do that." I mean, you're not allowed to do that. It's pretty good miles. We're working. And there's tear gas in the streets, and you see these people running away, and this actually just blew me away. You hear a woman start screaming, "Natasid, Natasid, Maham, Baham Hastim," and which means don't be afraid, together we're all united. And slowly the whole crowd starts cheering this, and people who are starting to run away turn around, and everybody's
stop.
And I mean, that is such a beautiful and universal slogan that suggests again that we should be taking our lead from what Iranians are doing on the streets of Iran and supporting them. That's the most important thing.
How important do you think it is that people around the world continue to show their support? Like, we have the rallies here, they have them in the States, in London, in Geneva, in Paris. How important do you think it is that, this sort of story doesn't go under the radar, that it sort of goes out of the public eye and the mainstream media sort of stops reporting on it, because it could go on for a long time potentially?
I think it's very important, and I don't think it's just about Iran. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It might seem superficially like it is about Iran. I think it's about the world, and I think people get that, and I think that's why people are so involved in this and rooting for these students. I mean, I think this is much more impactful, and I know it's a heavy thing to say, but in terms of the way it's going to affect the world, and certainly in terms of the investment that people are able to show through Facebook, Twitter, etc., now than Tiananmen Square was. Okay. But even Tiananmen Square was something that galvanized the world, and now...
Which we still talk about.
And this is a world-changing event. This is a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime event. It already is, no matter what happens. It's the Berlin Wall, it's Tiananmen Square, and it can be, and I think it's a lot bigger than that. I think, first of all, I don't think this can be rolled back. Yeah. I think, I don't think that...
The society will never be what it once was.
The fight for democracy will not be put down. It could be temporarily. Yeah. It's not, as you say, it's not going to take a week. Yeah. It's not going to take a year. It might take, but it could be a very long time. But it's not going away. And that's inspiration.
And the potential is not, like you say, it's not just about Iran. It can inspire other countries who are being oppressed and suppressed, their ideas being suppressed, to sort of rise up in a peaceful way, hopefully, to fight back against oppression as well. At Tiananmen Square last week, you described the demonstrations as a tipping point, which will bring about change. But yesterday at Queen's Park, you retracted that and said it's more than a tipping point, that Iranians are, quote, changing the world. Yeah. What happened in the 1 week between those two speeches that made you feel that it went from just a tipping point to more than a tipping point?
It's a good question. I would say I wasn't retracting as much as amending the fact that it wasn't clear in the first 24 hours, 48 hours after the election. It was clear that there was a great dissatisfaction that Iranians were rising up, that
something had
gone wrong. Yeah. It wasn't clear that that this was going to be the moment where the floodgates would open, if you will, you know, of this battle for democracy and freedom of expression and a rethinking, in fact, of the very society, you know, the structures of society that they live in. And if the floodgates weren't going to open, it was certainly a measure of a notice, a warning bell, you know, and that's why I was calling it a tipping point. This is, in the last week, it's become clear that Iranians are staying vigilant, and the global complexion that this has taken. I mean, it sounds trite, but when I, on Friday, 3-4 days ago, was watching my Twitter feed come up, and face after face turning green, of people who, non-Iranians, from different parts of the world, greenwashing their profile on Twitter to stand in solidarity with Iran. I mean, this is, you know, this is why it's the first cyberspace revolution. This is why it's the internet revolution. This is why it's created the validation of Facebook and Twitter, who were, both of which were considered sort of
social
perfunctory, playful social networking sites up until now, and have now become inextricably linked to as tools for political change. I mean, Mousavi today, his latest statement, which was keep the protests going, he announced to the world on Facebook. Right? I mean, this is profound in terms of the effect it's having, the messages it's sending to the world in terms of the way to unite globally around things that we believe in. So it's more than a tipping point now.